Hello, here. So today on this show, I have the pleasure of hosting my senior from IIM Ahmedabad, Amar, who is now fully on his own. So 2002, he completed his master's in construction management. 2011, his PGPX from IIM Ahmedabad, the one-year MBA, donned some hats in the corporate world, and now he's on his own. I mean, something which is a dream for a lot of people. So welcome to the show, Amar. Tell us more about your story.
Thanks, Anurag, and I'm smiling for a couple of reasons. You used the term senior, which I've not heard. I had probably not heard since my college days, and as one advances with age, the term senior also means that you are really growing old. So hopefully, I'm not that old to be called a senior just
You
yet.
lost hair,
In terms of age,
completely bald.
yeah, the hair may give a different impression, but hopefully that's not the case. The second thing is you mentioned an interesting aspect that I'm on my own and as a in my entrepreneurial venture. Well, I've been fortunate to have my wife as my not just my partner in life, but also my partner in crime, as I like to say. And
Yeah.
not that we're doing anything illegal, but the thing is that she's been a part of this journey from day one. So I've been very fortunate in that way that it's not all by myself. And of course, we'll talk further as we go along about how community, how alumni network, how people that friends and family, how they come to your help in different ways. So you're never really alone. When you ask for help, there will always be someone to help. Whether you
Yeah,
know that
that's
person.
someone, but yeah, you need to shoot a mail to probably 1,000 people to find those two good summons. So
Yes and no, but yes. So the point is that you are most of the times alone. Yes, but when you need help, you are never really alone. How
yeah,
about that?
correct. So the first segment is I wanted to understand what are the kind of brands that you worked with pre PGPX. What was your
Mm-hmm.
motivation for this one-year MBA from IIM Ahmedabad? Because you had an
Mm-hmm.
option probably to do it also from the US where you were already there settled. You came
Yeah.
back to India, worked for some time, then you went to IIM Ahmedabad. So what
Mm-hmm.
exactly were these things at play?
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting set of questions. I'll try to be a little bit brief because I think it will take up the whole half an hour that we have if I get talking about pre IIM Ahmedabad. Anurag, I'm a civil engineer, so I have a master's in construction management and actually spent the first 7 or 8 years of my career in the United States working in civil engineering design, so water supply utilities, reconstruction of dams. I mean, it just seems so crazy now that I think of it. And then I actually worked in retail store construction, mainly in the Chicago area. So a few good brands, great brands to work with, Target, Costco, CarMax. So I've actually seen, from a flat strip of land, actually the whole store being built and all the systems and things like that, right? Which is really exciting. And, obviously one was younger at that point in time. If you're telling your friends, what do you do? Oh, you see that, water pipeline or that pumping station over there? I built it. Versus telling friends that, oh, you see that big building over there? I built it, right? So what's below the ground versus what's above the ground? That was kind of the motivation for switching from design to construction at that point in time. Coming back to India in 2008 was largely because of family reasons. My parents were unfortunately no more. At that point in time, both of them were advancing in age. And I needed to be back in India, so it was a tough decision. I actually had a Canadian permanent residency at that point in time. I had a fellowship for my MBA from the University of Western Ontario, Richard Ivey School of Business. So life was on autopilot, and all one had to do was pack bags from Chicago, load things up in a car or a flight or whatever, and land in Toronto and get on with a new life. But I consciously moved to Pune in 2008 with the idea that I needed to be with family, with my parents. And somehow working in India in construction did not work out for me. One thing that really bothered me was the lack of respect for workers when it comes to employee health and safety, lack of standards being followed.
Completely.
And even buildings, buildings have a rating system called the LEED or the Green Building Rating System. Everything that you're not supposed to do, people were doing that, and they could walk away with a certificate and proudly show on their website or show on their catalog saying that we are a LEED Platinum certified building. So seeing all these things that were wrong really made me wonder, is this, do I really want to continue in construction in India? So that was my sannyas number one from construction, IIM Ahmedabad. The other thing I noticed was that an MBA could actually extend one's career by 5 to 7 years. If in 2008, 2009, I think 55 was around where I saw a lot of my friends, or my elder cousins. They all were retiring or their careers were plateauing around the age of 55. So, at that point in time, I was about 30. I said, how do I extend my career from 55 to 60, right? Or as the population pyramid kind of, there is a pressure from the younger generation, and that's what's happening now, to take up more and more senior level roles, or there are, transformations in technology or techniques, etc. Maybe if I continue in construction, my career will plateau at the age of 50, right? And if you're looking at life expectancy of 80, what happens in the next 30 years? So can an MBA, investing in new skills, investing in an MBA, extend my career by another 5 to 7 years? And remember, those are the years when income levels or your ability to earn money is the highest.
Correct.
Right? At those levels in
terms
career.
of return on investment, did MBA pay off? Means I am also charges a bomb in terms of the money. Now,
yes, it did.
All the more.
Yeah, it's all the more now. And let me tell you this, Anurag, something that I can tell very proudly now. I was actually flat broke, and I only had something like 50 or 60,000 rupees left in my bank by the time PGPX started. I was married 3 weeks before PGPX started. So my mother kept telling me, why are you going to go and have your MBA when you're 30 or 31? Number one, who will marry you? Right? Because if you have a loan and you don't have a job and things like that. Secondly, what is the guarantee that you'll get a job after spending 22 or 25 lakh rupees or whatever the thing is? Number three is, how will you be able to pay it off? What will happen to us? And these are very genuine questions. These are questions that probably a lot of parents will ask a lot of people, men and women even today, right? I was fortunate to find a life partner, Minu, my wife. We met in December 2009 and we got married in March 2010. PGPX started in April 2011, and to April 2010, I'm sorry, right? So 3 weeks before my MBA, everything that my mother said would not happen if I take up the loan and leave my job and do MBA. Actually, it did happen positively for me. So in terms of return of investment, that don't worry about it. Things will happen. It takes time. The trajectory may be different for everyone, but it does happen. Number one. Number two is, what are we measuring the return on investment in, right? A lot of your audience would come from the financial background. So are we measuring it only in terms of financial returns? Did it help immediately? Probably it did. So there was, I think typically it's a 1.8 to 2.1x increase in the compensation, right? Pre-PGPX.
That's a good number, because yesterday in one of my interviews, people wanted this answer, that what was the pre and the post-MBA X factor.
Right. Absolutely. I think median compensation, I have not kept track of where the compensation numbers are for over the past 4 or 5 years. But I think median compensation used to be in that 1.8 to 2x for most of the PGPX alums, those who decided either to continue in the current profession or to switch careers. And in my case, I did switch careers, right? From construction to energy consulting, right? So that was one part. It does pay off. I think a few things that one has to keep in mind. The brand will help you open the doors. At the end of the day, it's your ability, your network, your passion for that particular role, which will actually help you bag that particular role, right? Secondly, I think 2011 was the first year when PGPX or IIM Ahmedabad started participating in the Financial Times rankings. And we were ranked number 11 or something like that. So I was very proudly used to put this footer in the email, right? PGPX ranked number 11. You know what one employer told me? That just means that I'll have to pay you even more now. You made my job difficult and you're way too expensive for me. That's why I cannot hire you. Okay. Going back to, again, so it all depends. Obviously, 2011 was not the best time to enter the workforce, right? Economy is not doing very great. India is still recovering from the 2008, 2009, economic crisis and things like that. Obviously, 2012, 2013 was probably even worse because, change of government and everything else that came with it, right? So one has to keep the economic cycles in mind. One has to keep, what is it that you are looking for, right? I call it the triangle, right? Either you choose the city or the location, You choose the job or the role, or you choose the sector of the industry, right?
Okay.
It's difficult to achieve the perfect triangle, or actually a quadrilateral. If four points of a square or a rectangle, if you actually consider the salary range as well, saying that I do not want a job below number X, right? If you're married to that, to achieve a checkbox, like tick mark on all the four corners of that particular equation. Yeah. And I'm sorry if I'm getting a little bit mathematical, but then the point is you have to make a compromise somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So in
For me,
case,
the
for example,
yeah.
Gaatha, your case.
So in my case, actually, I wanted to leave construction. Right.
Okay.
So there were a couple of opportunities.
Post PGPX.
Yeah. Yeah. So what had happened was that there were actually two very interesting opportunities. One was with General Electric, and at that point in time, it was a great brand to work with. I wish that was the case even today. And it was in Pune. Yeah. So the other role was in energy consulting in Gurugram, and my parents, my family, everyone was in Pune. So I wanted to leave construction. So the cost factor there was actually leaving Pune and having to move to Gurugram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously you are uprooting yourself from a comfort zone and you're moving away to a completely new place. So that is the cost, that is the price one has to pay, and we were willing to
function. You're getting a good salary, but you're compromising on the location. Means
so
to that extent.
In terms of compensation, both were quite similar actually.
Okay.
But then my thing was that for my own professional growth, for the longevity of my career in India, let us say, I wanted to leave construction.
Okay, cool, good. So then, I think 2011, Jan 16, you still worked in the corporate world, drawing the check. So by the time you started to venture out on your own, I mean, what were your thoughts at your mind? Your loan was prepaid. You were like, okay, this is the time to plunge.
Right. So I'd just like to add one more thing. Okay, it was not all easy moving to Gurugram right after PGPX. Like I said, I was broke and I was still broke. I in fact had to borrow money from my cousin to buy a flight ticket to go to Gurugram so that I could start working.
Oh my God.
That was also the time when my father was hospitalized. In fact, he was in the ICU for about a month and a half. So, medical bills, loan, it was a difficult time. However, like I said, a lot of things also started happening positively. In fact, I remember a part of my bonus check was paid to the hospital and the other part was given off to my cousin to pay back the money that I'd borrowed to buy the flight ticket. Right. So, so it will not be easy. It will be extremely difficult. And I hope, none of your audience has to go through what I went through. But then the point is, don't use these as hurdles to actually, don't look at them as setback. Look at what you can actually really find a way out of this, right? What it did was, Anurag, let me tell you, it made me and my wife so disciplined when it comes to our cost of living.
Okay.
Yeah, we were able to pay off the PGPX loan in 2.5 years. Okay. And out of which, for the first 6 months, she was not working because even she had to move from Ahmedabad, move to NCR and find a role for herself, right? So on a practically a single income for a good part of those 2.5 years, it was still possible because then that's where the discipline comes into picture. And now let me talk to you about how that helps now in entrepreneurship, right? The paycheck is no longer there. You're back to a single income because she was working and obviously I had started out the venture. But then the cost of, it's not just cost of living, right? It's the ability to say no and not really feel bad about it. Yeah, that extra dinner out with the wife, that extra, additional movie that you want to watch. If you have an option of doing a Uber, well, Uber didn't exist then, but in today's parlance, right? Option of doing an Uber pool versus taking a full Uber cab, what does that 30 rupees, what does that 50 rupees mean to you? Even now, I don't think twice about it,
Correct.
So those are the things that become ingrained.
No, I remember because even when I was in PGPX, I had stopped earning and going to an ATM, withdrawing money and then going to have my tea was like, hey, what has happened in my life?
What is happening? Yeah.
So
it hurts. It will pinch. Yeah. But then the advantage is that in the long run, it really makes you feel, much more prepared for anything that may come your way. Having that that tether cut off, saying that, oh, there's no paycheck now, what will happen? Is that the end of the world? That fear kind of subsides. I'll not say it will go away, but the thing is, you'll be ready to do much more with a lot less.
Okay. So when you started on your own, so one challenge is that a lot of people want to start on their own, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't know what exactly they should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Because zeroing in on what exactly is your core competency, where you have a sustainable competitive advantage. You just
Right.
plunging into entrepreneurship is useless, right?
Yeah.
Unless I'm leveraging
Very
something
true.
which is I'm really passionate about and which has got a market. So how did Gatha stories happen?
Mm-hmm.
Was it
Sure.
accident?
I think that's a great question. And again, Anurag, I think your questions are bringing a lot of smile on my face. So don't think, I hope your audience don't think that I'm taking things, taking it lightly or just trying to say that everything is easy. But the thing is, very relevant, very valid questions, and something that we went through in the second half of 2015. See, one of the reasons for leaving my role with Amazon was it involved a lot of travel. And let me tell you that entire calendar year 2015, I was in the office only for like 12 or 13 days. Rest of the time was just every Monday morning fly out, every Saturday evening fly back. Yeah, and I was not a consultant. Yeah, I was spending time on construction sites. It was affecting family life. It was affecting, obviously, time that you are able to do other things in, right, with your time. So around September 2015, my wife and I decided that, and it's never going to be a joint decision, right? You have to involve your significant other, you have to involve your family, you have to involve your well-wishers before you actually take the plunge. So my wife and I actually spent early October. We spent a week in Pondicherry or Puducherry, and believe it or not, we just sat at the beach and we talked. Okay, we talked about everything under the sun. We both it's like absolutely courting, or it's actually going out on a first date with someone. You want to arrive. You want the relationship to work, but you don't know how to steer the conversation. So you talk about a lot of other things and let the conversation drive itself, right? So we
Yeah,
both talked about what is it, where has our life taken us so far? What are the, what is it that we really want to do? What is it that we would like to, do? What is it that we are able to do? A lot of questions that went around. And as we started talking, we said, okay, if not my current role with Amazon, then what, right? Then the answer was obvious. It's not construction. It's not what I'm doing now. Okay, let's do something in digital media or audio, right? As we got talking, we both discovered we are both passionate about it. We both
but how
like
did digital
storytelling,
media come in the first place? It's not at
right?
all related to construction. So suddenly you
Not
realize,
at all. Yeah. So once the answer was that we both love storytelling, we both love the content space, right? We realized that okay, we both have been listening to a lot of audio for several years. I've been listening to podcasts since probably 2003 or 2004, even before the term was coined. Yeah. Minu started listening after 2011, after we got married. Yeah. So we said, okay, let's give back to a medium or an area that we are both passionate about. Okay, but that's not enough. And let me tell you, to answer your question now, how did digital media come into picture? We actually wrote down the skill sets required for making a business case out of it. That's when we realized that production of the content. So there are four elements. One is the pre-production. Okay, curating the content, finding a narrator, finding an infrastructure, or a studio, audio editor, etc., etc. Second is the actual content distribution. Where do I host it? Can people listen to it on their Android device or through Spotify or Apple Podcast or whatever, right? Third is the marketing element, social media marketing. That's where, that is the crux. And fourth is community engagement. Yeah.
okay.
Now, whether you do it through a Facebook group or your own website or through an app or whatever, these are completely, none of these skill sets between the two of us, either of us possessed. So it is a completely different set of skill sets that we would have to learn. And I
Oh,
said, and both of us said, this is great. If you want to do it, we need to be prepared for a, 5 to 7 year journey, wherein the first 3 to 4 years we'll only spend in learning. Well, obviously, hopefully making money also, and
no
we'll talk
money.
about it as we go.
Uh,
Sorry?
Learning without earning.
No. So fortunately, that was not the case. Definitely not from year two.
Business case
But
also does.
yeah, yeah. So again, it is a reinvestment in your career.
Correct. So just like a
Yeah.
PGPX in real world.
This is absolutely a PGPX in real world, and I can tell you some of the things that we've done. So you may remember, I think in the first term in the marketing class, we were supposed to go to a store and talk to the store owner and
Yeah,
understand.
absolutely, absolutely. Right.
I think, I don't know about you, but I kind of took it a little easy, saying that never in my life I'm going to go and work for a Unilever or, work for a FMCG brand and go to a retail store and talk to people. You know what I do these days? I'm learning Kannada because obviously a lot of cab drivers also, are from Kannada, or a lot of interactions here in Bangalore are in Kannada, right? And we'd love to do a show in that language. So I need to learn that language just to be comfortable in the content that we're producing, right? My daily activity or my weekly activity is to pitch Gaatha story to a Uber driver or anybody else in Kannada, at least one person every week.
Okay. I do this for my YouTube channel also.
Perfect. I mean, it's a skill set I still am hopelessly prepared for, but it's tough. I'm learning, and I start conversations with somebody saying that, okay, do you have kids? How old are your kids? And I tell them, my Kannada is horrible, so I'm sorry about it, but help me become a better communicator.
Oh, fantabulous. I think that's amazing. And it takes a lot of ego beating, because you are someone in an Amazon, someone in a Snyder, and now you are pitching, bhai, you become a subscriber to my podcast.
Exactly. And it's difficult. I think more than ego, it is about getting out of that comfort zone.
And that person now who is determining your fortune is that one individual guy who's going to do a thumbs up or a thumbs down on your podcast.
Absolutely. And I have no control on their response or their feedback.
Your content. So tell me more about Gaatha stories. Bal Gaatha, my kitab, where I had also once hosted one.
Right. Sure. So coming back to 2015, October in Puducherry, and just to bring the story back to that era. We decided that audio, on-demand audio, we still don't like to use the word podcasting because it limits the potential. On-demand audio is what we want to do, right?
Okay.
So then the question was that the elements that I spoke about, right? Production, marketing, hosting, distribution, and community engagement, things like that. How do we begin? Okay, we've taken a decision that come end of December, I'll be leaving Amazon, and first week of January onwards, we'll be starting Gaatha story. So how do we go about it? Okay, so obviously some of the steps are very logical. Register an entity, define the partnership, or it's things like that. So that's the harder, technical aspect.
Checklist-based things, fine. You have a budget, easy, find a chartered accountant is going to do it for you.
Absolutely, which is relatively easy. But the more difficult part was, how do you actually execute that?
Exactly.
It was 3 months to execute. I understood the whole process of production. We actually invested in this learning course, which cost about $1,000 to, how to produce your own content, your own show, etc., etc. We invested in a microphone and, things like that. And so upfront, there was a bit of an upfront investment involved. There's a lot of learning involved. And I said that I'm an author as well. I love talking and talking to people and interviewing authors. So why not start with a show for authors? So in terms of product market fit, it probably was very early to the market. It's only now that publishers in India have started doing interviews of authors, or there are audio shows on book publishing in India. But back in October or November 2015, nobody in the Indian market spoke about such a show.
But I must tell you, it was fantastic. My kitab, it gives you a real perspective of how do you go about. One of the things that I learned there was that I think some of the authors told you that 50% of the effort is only writing the book. 50% is actually marketing. There's no point writing if you can't market.
Yeah, absolutely. And that applies for every business, right? Once you get your basics right, it's only about customer engagement, marketing, outreach, feedback, iterate and optimize, right? So the reason why we started with My Kitab was because it was talking to authors or understanding the book publishing world was something that I was comfortable with. And that's where we could actually develop a minimum viable product, saying that standard format, weekly show. Actually, we originally started My Kitab with a 3 times a week show. Again, testing and validating product market fit, right? 3 months later, My Kitab became 2 times a week show. Another 3 months later, My Kitab became a weekly show because we were giving much more to the audience than they could digest.
Correct. You had told me this one. Right. Correct.
So this is how My Kitab started, and I think it was a great learning experience for us. What are the unit costs involved in producing a show? How much does it take in terms of preparation time? I did everything myself, and a 45-minute interview in the first year or first 3 or 4 months would involve 15 hours of my time.
Okay.
Researching the author, preparing the questions, setting up the time, everything. Today, if I do it, it takes me about an hour and a half, end to end.
So it's 1/10. So that's the learning.
1/10. Standardizing the process. How do we automate? How do we optimize? How do we find people to do certain, time-consuming things for you? Now, if had I not spent those 15 hours in 2015, October, November, December, I would not be able to do that in 90 minutes today. Yeah. So there are certain things that you have to do.
Correct. So what's the way forward, as in terms of now you've done Gaatha stories, Bal Gaatha, Chants of India, been well appreciated. I think on Apple iStores, your one is actually listed well. But I am being a bit playing the devil's advocate. Do people in India still prefer an audio podcast over a YouTube in terms of that listening capability?
Yeah.
Or is your audience more international, means from the US, Canada, etc., NRIs?
Right. So answer to questions is both, right? Or a typical MBA answer would be depends, but let me qualify by saying that, right? There are parents who understand that video actually reduces the child's learning and development abilities.
Okay.
Simple example. And most of the content, right, or most of the videos are drawn by adults.
Okay.
Yeah. So if an adult says that this is a blue balloon, for example, what is the first picture that comes to somebody's mind? You know what blue color is. You're probably wearing a blue shirt as well, right? So some variation of the shirt that you're wearing could be lighter, could be darker. And it will most likely be an egg shape, because all balloons are egg shapes, right? More or less. In India, if you ask a child to draw a kite, they would draw a kite as a typical kite image, right? A square that's more of a rhombus or something like that with a little tail attached to it. Kites in China are shaped like a dragon.
Correct.
Right. So the very fact that since childhood we are shown a typical shape for a kite in India, an Indian child will most likely draw a kite in that shape only. A Chinese child may draw it like a dragon, because the possibility that a balloon can be rectangle, a balloon can be yellow in color, a balloon can be whatever.
So you kind of
possibilities are endless.
The image of
exactly
is a kite.
Exactly. So why should an adult impose their interpretation onto a child? So there are a lot of parents now who are realizing audio is probably the better medium, because it reduces the imposed aspect and it enhances the creativity of the child. Goes back to Indian culture. You've had thousands of years of oral storytelling culture.
Correct.
So there is one group of parents, and definitely if you look at the market segmentation for Gaatha story or Bal Gaatha in particular. So Bal Gaatha is an audio show right now in 3 languages. It's tailored towards kids who are under 8 years of age. Yeah.
English,
English, Hindi and Marathi, and we are soon launching in Telugu and Gujarati.
Oh, 5 languages.
Yeah. So we'll probably have 8 by the end of the year. But yeah, so the thing is that now, irrespective of the geography and irrespective of the language that we are talking about, there are parents who are realizing that audio has a significant role to play in the child's learning. And that's
I completely agree. That concept of your kite really drives home the point that you're limiting the imagination by saying, okay, this is how a kite should be. When you say audio, when I say Cinderella, she can imagine my little daughter that Cinderella could be beautiful. How beautiful, tall, not so tall.
Correct. Exactly. And for example, why should Cinderella be wearing a pretty dress? Why can't she wear camouflage pants and ride a dirt bike?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's fantabulous in terms of now that I understand. Good.
Mm-hmm. So that was one part. Second is, who are you targeting? Most of the children's content is targeted towards children. Gaatha stories are actually targeted towards the parents. So our pitch is, we want the parent to be a storyteller. So what if, you are a parent, Anurag, you just mentioned, what if I were to offer to you a library of audio stories about 7 or 8 minutes in length, which you can listen to on your way home, or, you've got about 15-20 minutes, and before your daughter comes, quickly you listen to the story. And these are not unknown stories to you. These are from Jatak, Panchatantra, and but now Gaatha story becomes a refresher to you, a cheat sheet of sorts, right? And then you go ahead and tell your daughter before putting her to bed saying, let me tell you a new story today. Now that makes you a hero in front of your daughter, because my father or my mother knows so many new stories.
Wow, I mean, that could be something I try today. So then,
Right?
product market fit is there, but then from an entrepreneur's perspective, who is bootstrapping, has not been funded yet, doesn't have money to burn, then are there people who are willing to pay? Because that again in the Indian context becomes a lot of a problem. Free is free,
Super
wow,
question.
amazing. Give me money, oh, I'll have to think. That's a lot of.
Absolutely. So depends on who you see as your customer, right? Our audience is still parents and children, but for us, customers are businesses or brands.
Okay.
Yeah? So we knew from early on that if you really look at the very low, 1 or 2% conversion rates in the freemium model, so unless you have millions of listeners, you're never going to make money in the content space, right?
Then?
Or you do a subscription and you limit your growth saying that, I'm only going to go focus on the tier 1 cities or the English language speaking people in India who have an Apple device or NRIs. You really limit your market segment and you market only to them. So let's say that I have 20,000 paying subscribers and each of them is paying, 100 rupees a month, or they are paying whatever, $5 a month, right? Then you're limiting the growth potential of your listeners, of your market as well. But what if the content becomes free for, going back to the day of broadcast radio and TV, right? FM radio, right? It's all ad supported. It's the brands who are actually subsidizing the production and the distribution cost, and to the list free. Yeah. Okay. So what if we follow that similar model in the sense that the production, marketing, distribution, etc., all the costs are met by partnering with a brand, and to the listener, you in this case, it becomes free. Okay. So then the whole issue of, why should I pay? And then of course, RBI mandates and everything, right? Automatic renewal of subscription is not allowed. Then you have to tie up a third party provider who's outside of India, then the fees become prohibitive. Government may clamp down it tomorrow, so suddenly your revenue stream is choked, So the moment you go to the B2C way, it becomes very difficult without having to have a large listener base, very poor conversion ratios, always struggling to get that repeat customer. The whole model becomes very different.
How it was to get a brand like a Pepsi or a Vivo to sponsor your Gaatha series?
Yeah, well, hopefully not a Pepsi because of variety of other reasons. But the idea is that which are the child-friendly brands, right? Can it be a FMCG company? Yeah.
Or a Horlicks? Yeah.
A Horlicks or Johnson & Johnson. Exactly. So now that Gaatha stories, Bal Gaatha has received over 1 million listens, available in 5 languages soon, and we'll have a content library of about 1,000 odd stories. It becomes a very attractive package for any large brand to be associated with it. And particularly given the demographic, about a third of the audience come from North America, rest of, about more than half of them come from Indian tier 1 cities and metros, right? And mostly women. That's again another thing why we are very clear in our segmentation, and we invested a lot of time in growing the market.
Okay, so you need the audience. So accordingly, the audience will determine who is going to pay for the advertisement. Means exactly the advertisement is relevant for whom.
Yeah, if we go to a brand now saying that this is my demographic profile and these are the kind of businesses or the messaging from, from certain businesses that our audience will appreciate.
I think that makes a lot of sense because, for example, in YouTube, the only way you can earn is the ad, and in India, especially we will skip at the quickest that it can be happening. So the B2C model will never really work in our country.
It's good unless there is scale, right?
Scale could be.
Or you have a monopoly on the segment.
I am not very sure how these Jio Savans and the Awajes and all work. And probably you would be also looking to get, acquired by one of these larger brands in times to come.
Well, hopefully someday, yes. Once there is a business case and few other things falling into place. But I think it's too early to have that conversation. Right now, the idea is to, first of all, right now we are operationally profitable, right? We are cash flow positive 3 years into it. We have been able to standardize the processes to such an extent that turnaround time without compromising on the quality is working out very well. Now, next issue becomes how do we actually increase the volume, right? Both in terms of content production and listenership of the content, right?
Okay.
Amplify the business so that we can then start commanding higher margins. That is when the business actually will become attractive to all the players in the ecosystem. And by that, I mean brands,
Customer
audience.
acquisition cost. Are you willing to pay, let's say, 20 rupees to have someone download your podcast or something like that? Means the model which a Paytm or a free charge
Sure.
offers, cash burn.
Sure. No. So till this year, past whatever, 37 or 38 months, so we have spent a total of 1,300 rupees on Facebook ads, and that's our only ad spend. We have let the content drive the growth completely.
Amazing. I mean, that is something which the Paytms and the free charges of the world should understand. I mean, it's not a comparable thing, but
Right. So yeah, and you might be seeing the reports of some of these startups who file with ROC now, right? And I think Tracker is one of the publications that's doing a fabulous job. That to earn every rupee, somebody spent 3 rupees,
which
or
is
you earned a profit. Your revenue was 20 crores and your cost was 300 crores. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's not sustainable. It may work for some. It definitely will not work for us. Let me put it this way.
I am a Marwadi. I really cannot think of ever running a business like that. I mean, crazy. And you wrote somewhere on LinkedIn that you're finding branded content to be better. I mean, that's what the realization is sinking. What exactly does that?
Okay, sure. I use the example of Vivo and Pepsi for IPL, right? So you got something called as sponsored content, wherein I got some material or some format or some entity. Somebody pays for a title sponsorship. So, before Vivo, there was DLF, and before that, I think around that there was Pepsi. So IPL as an entity or as a standalone brand or as a piece of content. At the end of the day, IPL is entertainment, right? It's a piece of content. So IPL as a piece of content over the years has actually changed title sponsors 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
Yeah. So the sponsor has changed. So that's one revenue model for your content business that you are in. Second could be that you associate yourself with a brand. So, going back to the days of, I guess, 15 or 20 years ago, the top 10 songs of the week and things like that, it used to be Philips top 10 on ZT or something like that.
Lux
Chitraha sponsored by Lux and things like that, right? And I hope your audience are able to relate to some of these things, because if they're younger, if they're millennials, they'll not be able to understand what we're talking about.
I think Rangoli Chitraha should, they are our...
It should resonate. Yeah, it should resonate with a lot more people, right? So you got co-branded content. Then you got something which is called as sponsored. Then you got something which is like, white label. So, I produce it on a turnkey basis and give it to you. And you go ahead and say, this is the Anurag show. Right?
Okay.
You, being a bigger brand, are able to command or you have a bigger footprint or visibility compared to, let's say, me at this point in time.
Yeah.
So the for you, the advantage is that you get everything done on a platter for you, and you just attach your brand to it and go ahead and say it's your show, right? Then there is another format wherein you approach me and say that, okay, we're going to do this together. So we'll call it, let's say, the Anurag and Amar show, and footer will say sponsored by Anurag.
Got it.
Right. That is branded content, wherein it's done as a partnership. So there are a few content makers abroad, particularly, one of them, and going back to the LinkedIn comment, there's this company called Pacific Content in Vancouver in Canada, who does on-demand audio shows for brands like a Dell, a Mozilla, a Microsoft, a Facebook.
Okay.
Right? So they only work with these tier 1 brands. They do it as a collaborative partnership. It is not a white label. It is not a sponsored content, but they jointly develop the storyboard. They jointly develop the topics or the themes or the issues that they're going to talk about.
I think,
Now, and that has worked out very well for them.
Perfect.
And coming to, it's worked out well for us as well. So there was one show, Myths, Legends and Fairy Tales of India. When we were in early stages of discussing it, so there is this audiobook publisher from Sweden called Storytel. They approached us and said that, hey, can we do this together? In the sense that our content will be available on Storytel exclusively for a period of time. And after which we can go ahead and launch it as its own show, right? However, it will continue to carry a message for Storytel.
So in the beginning, you speak about Storytel and then start off with the content. Okay.
So yeah, we do it midway. But then the point is that that actually, and obviously they were willing to pay that. That met the production cost. That actually solved a lot of other problems for us. That we could invest in some really great audio editors, find some great content and things like that, right? So we've tasted success with it. We are talking to a few other brands on doing something similar on the business side of it. We're talking to a brand on Gaatha side of it. So, it actually works out very well. It's a win-win for both the brand as well as the content producer in this.
So finally, you found a way. I mean, I'm good that something, 4 years ago, you would not have ever imagined that content creation would have found resonance in terms of even the profit and loss and balance sheet perspective. But glad that ways and means to do that. So final thoughts in terms of, how does the Alum Connect of IIM Ahmedabad help you in your journey a bit? I mean, be very brief because we're kind of running out of time.
Sure. So, here is where I would love to say, how much time are you willing to invest in connecting with the alums?
Okay.
Right. And typically in my case, it has been, if you really look at the give is to receive ratio, for lack of a better term, for you have to give at least 3 to 4 times before you receive something from, and it need not be the same person, right? It's a network. It's a full circle at the end of the day, right? So how much time are you willing to invest? It may not be a problem related to their career. It could be something related to their spouse's career. I don't know, right? Or for their children, etc. Okay? So that is the answer, and there is no other better answer than I can give. Second thing that I would like to tell you. Yeah, you should be willing to help them, right? And the other answer, let me also tell you, this is anecdotal, so don't quote me on this. For every new, every alum who graduates out of IIM Ahmedabad, at least definitely the PGPX, give them 3 to 4 years for them to resettle into their professional, corporate, entrepreneurial life before you start approaching them for help.
Makes sense. And the bonus has to be, that it cannot be that I connect with you on LinkedIn. You accept the invite and I barge into this and say, boss, here's my job portal, get me a new client.
Yep. No, never do that. It will not work. In fact, there used to be a point in time wherein every Diwali or Christmas, I used to handwrite an email to about 600 people. I mean, I wish I could do that even now. But and the response rate used to be ridiculous, 50 or 60 people even writing thank you, that's it, let alone acknowledgement or whatever, right? That is one extreme. Don't do that because it is a significant time commitment. However, there were certain CXO level executives who did not reply, but 1 year I did not send, and I met that gentleman, one of the people in a flight, and they said, I didn't receive your email this Diwali, what happened? So, be careful of what you do. It may actually, if you stop doing that, it may have some adverse effect. So be willing to commit that amount of time. And it need not be money, right? It need not be your connections. It can be something as simple as, I know some person X, talk to this person, they may be able to solve your problem.
So I'm having migraine. Oh, go to this doctor, he's good. So anything that can help persons connected. So final thoughts in terms of what's your advice to future entrepreneurs? First an MBA, does that MBA help? When to plunge it? Take some years in job, pay off the loan and then jump. Final thoughts, quickly.
Sure. So number one, make sure your family's financial basis are covered. Okay, we still live in a society where it is, the male is looked upon as a primary bread earner. So it may not, you may say it doesn't affect me, it will affect your family, definitely your spouse, one way or the other, right? People look at you differently. Number two, make sure that your other financial obligations are taken care of.
Okay.
Children's education, home loan, insurance, whatever investments and things like that. Number three, from day one, don't think that you would get some sort of a venture investment or something like that, and you start, receiving millions, and then you'll start making billions. That may not happen. Right?
Okay.
So from day one, treat every rupee that is going into the business. It's look at it as the rupee that is not going towards your retirement savings. That will really keep you such heavily cost focused. You'll learn to say no to 10 other things. Facebook ads being a classic example in our case, right? You'd start saying no to more things than yes. And I think that will be a good starting point. But the biggest thing is, don't think you can do everything yourself. Just because you have an MBA and, just because you've learned certain skills and you've had a, 10 or 12, 15-year career does not mean that you can do everything on your own. Find help from a professional. It could be a consultant. It could be a contractual role. It could be an intern, I do pay the interns, by the way. But find others to take away things from you as quickly as you can, so that you can concentrate on the number one activity that the business demands.
ABC analysis, focus on the A, let B and C be taken care of by your ancillary.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Very nice, Amar. I mean, pleasure talking to you as always. And I'll share your LinkedIn description with people. I'm sure a lot of them are going to look at Gaatha stories as well. So thank you so much. And I'm sure our audience will find this interesting. And people, if you found this interesting, give us a thumbs up, share it with some people who you think are contemplating jumping onto the entrepreneurial boat, but maybe are hesitant. Amar's journey is a classic example of where you are going to find your own moat. Maybe 3 years, 4 years down the line, be prepared. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Great. Thanks so much, Anurag. And just to your audience, let me also tell you, Anurag had actually called me up about a year and a half or 2 years ago and saying that, I'm just getting into this video and YouTube channel. How do I go about it? And I remember you and I talking about, some of the do's and don'ts of video interviews.
We had long.
And the way your show has grown, your YouTube channel has grown, and the viewership and everything, that's an entrepreneurial journey in itself. So I think, sometime maybe you should go ahead and interview yourself on how your channel has grown.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.